Hi, and welcome to the Math Together show where thoughtful educators gather and learn together. I'm Dr. Sue Looney.
I'm Molly Vokey.
And I'm Heidi Subnani. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here.
Yes.
Yes, and we are going to be talking today with Dr. Frances Sue about this question. Why should I learn math? Why do I need to know this stuff? Because kids never ask that. And the answer, you'll use it later, is not a good answer and often not true. So this is going to be an interesting conversation today.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we're really excited if you are joining us live right now. If you want to let us know where you're watching from in the comments, that would be great. And we're always happy to take questions during that time too. If we can get to them, we will. And another amazing thing is that there will be a book raffle. So the way that you get a copy of Math for Human Flourishing, and we have been enjoying this book so much as we've been reading and preparing. I think I probably highlighted more than, like there's more highlighted than not highlighted, let's just put it that way right now. And so we know that you'll really enjoy this as we have as well. And so if you would like to join or enter for the raffle, the way that you do that is by adding a comment. It could be just where you're from and where you're watching from. We'll look at these on YouTube and here on Facebook. So if you're watching later, we're going to choose that name on Monday evening. So you have between now and Monday to enter in for the raffle.
Excellent. And you can enter on Twitter too. If you enter something
true.
on the comments, that stays up there as well. So excellent. And who are we? So we are Looney Math. And if you are looking for a partner to work with you and support you, our mission is to help everybody provide powerful and joyful mathematics for all students and all learners. And so we're bringing on partners right now for this summer and following school year. So if that's of interest to you, you can check out the website. There's also a section of free resources. So the website might be useful to you. And then we send out a newsletter where we reach out with activities and ideas, opportunities, links. And if you want to get onto that mailing list, it's super easy. You can pick up your phone even right now and you just text 22828 and you text the word Looney, and that fires off a chain of things for you. But you're not here to talk about us. You're here to hear from our guest. And so Molly has the pleasure of reading our bio of our wonderful guest, Dr. Frances Sue.
Yes. Frances Sue is the Benedictine Carwa Professor of Mathematics at Harvey Mudd College and a past president of the Mathematical Association of America. He writes about the dignity of human beings and the wonder of mathematical teaching. In 2013, he received the Hymo Award, a nationwide teaching prize for college math faculty. And in 2018, he won the Helmholtz Ford Writing Award. His work has been featured in Quanta Magazine, Wired, and the New York Times. His book, Mathematics for Human Flourishing, recently won the 2021 Euler Book Prize from the Mathematical Association of America. And it is an inclusive vision of what math is, who it's for, and why anyone should learn it. Let's bring in Frances Sue. Welcome.
Hello, how's it going?
We're good. We're doing great.
We're doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend a little time with us this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So we always like to start out with this question, and it allows our watchers to learn a little bit more about you. So we start with this question: what is your why? Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my why is I am passionate about getting students and the public excited about mathematics, and part of the reason that I want to do this is because I've witnessed, I've been party to, I've enjoyed the kinds of ways that mathematics can enrich my life, and I want others to be able to experience that as well. And whether that's through my teaching at the college level or whether that's through public writing and trying to convince the public that math is something that is worthy of doing and also worthwhile, because it contributes to a life well lived. That's my why for what I do.
Awesome. And you've got a task ahead of you. I think maybe the term used in your book was math confessions, but that might not be exactly it. But when we say that we're in mathematics, everybody pretty much right away starts lamenting, like, oh, like I was never good at math and all those things. They look at you in a particular way. So does
I think
motivate?
you get a combination, right? Of like, oh, you're crazy. They'll look like, oh, you're crazy, or oh, you must be really smart.
Yeah, it's a very common reaction, and I mean, I like to, depending on the context, dispel that notion, right? I mean, people think of you're a math professor, therefore your walk through math must have been easy, and in many ways, in some ways it has been, in some ways it hasn't, right? For me, I certainly have had a privileged existence in some ways. I was born into a family that happened to be pretty academic. My dad's a college professor, not in math, but in something else. So I saw a path for me there in that way. But in some other ways, I've been really discouraged by math. And so I tell a little bit of the story in my book where, I get to graduate school and I suddenly realize, oh my gosh, like I'm not as good at math as these people. And then even had a professor say to me, you don't really have what it takes to be a successful mathematician, which, now I can look back and I can dismiss that comment as clearly unjustified, but at the time was really hurtful. And part of the, the thing I think happens to many of us in many different parts of our math journeys is we get discouragement like that from other people. And why do we need to do that? Like, why are we treating people this way? So that's part of the question that I think we all need to wrestle with is, why is math education not as affirming as it could be?
I wonder if and that question has been kind of pivotal in my life too, is like, why is it so sometimes awful to be a student of math, or to be in an environment that can seem exclusive, or that you have to have a certain status to enter in or participate. And one of the things I love just in reading your book is you're framing it in a different way, as an explorer or as an exploration. And I think sometimes there's this idea of we do math or we participate in it, but we don't often explore math. And how we set that up, I mean, in our world in K-12 classes, but where is that exploratory math? Where's the opportunities for that?
Right. Yeah, and sometimes it feels like learning math is like drinking from a fire hose, right? Like it's all these facts that I gotta know, but there isn't that solid structure, the undergirding structure that's the understanding, right? Like, once you understand, then a lot of these puzzle pieces fit into place. But without the underlying structure, it can just seem like a bunch of things I need to memorize, and that's unfortunately the experience people have.
Yeah, and another thing I wrote down from the book that comes to mind when we think about the different experiences and the confessions that come your way, when you say, like, I'm a math educator, I love math, right? You said achievement is a product of who we invest in. And so I think about that too. Like, do we think and believe that math isn't for you, right? It's only for us. And so we need to invest in everybody. Like that's part of your messaging. But that's pretty powerful to link achievement. Achievement is who we invest in. It's so obvious, but it gave me pause.
Yeah, I mean, I think the usual way people think of achievement is I achieved because of me. Everything's because of me. And, to some extent, yes, that's true. There is some part of achievement happens because you put in the work and the effort. but a lot of achievement happens because of circumstances beyond our control, right? The various things that we've been graced with, been fortunate enough in some sense to have, right? Like, I have a parent, both parents educated. And so, like, okay, I was in an environment where they said, okay, you're going to go to college, even though most of your high school classmates are not, right? I grew up in a small rural town. Very few people went to college, right? But it was an expectation for me because I was fortunate enough to have parents who understood the power and the value of education. So then, so when I say achievement's a product to invest in, like, yeah, well, that might not have happened if my parents hadn't had those opportunities to themselves get college education. So I sort of maybe in challenging this very individualistic notion that we have in society. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Anyways.
Well, let's dig into. I think all of this comes around, and a lot of the things that are addressed in the book are here. So, why should I learn math? Why do I need to know this stuff? You'll use it later is not a good answer, maybe not even true. And so, I think your answers to this sort of tie into where we've begun this conversation in connection to your why.
Yes. Yeah, why should I learn this stuff? Very common question. And part of the reason it's a common question is people often think, okay, well, they're told you're going to need to know this later. Or maybe the answer is you're going to get a good job, right? Or you need to get a good job. Or you needed to get into college. Or maybe you needed to get credentialed in some way. And sometimes even people think, I'm going to learn this stuff so that I can be better than other people at something. Right. So that's another reason people do this, because they want the satisfaction of feeling like part of an elite club. Right. And I'm sort of pushing back against all these things and saying, no. The reason that we learn mathematics is because mathematics helps people flourish. Mathematics enriches the way that you live and the way that you think. Mathematics is equipment for thinking in some sense. Right. And who doesn't want to be to live life with more richness, like being able to see patterns where others can't see those patterns. And of course, I'm not talking, when I say flourish, I'm not talking about living a happy life, right? Happiness is very different. I'm talking about living life fully, even in difficult circumstances, even if everything's going against you. Being able to experience math and some of the power and the joy that comes through thinking mathematically can enrich your life even in the most difficult circumstances. So why should I learn math? I'd say because math helps people flourish. And, of course, in some ways that may be not satisfying to, somebody who's like, well, I don't know about that. Like, I'm a kid who, I haven't had my shares of hard knocks of life. Okay, but then they often do ask, why do I need, why do I need to learn this stuff? And so to that, I would say, the answer can't be because you'll need to learn it later. It can't be because you're going to go off to college, because those things may not be true, right? But what it is true is we need to learn mathematics because thinking mathematically builds in us. We're building certain virtues, ways of being, ways that are not just skills. So I think of skills as something like factor a polynomial. Okay, but you know what? Most of us are never going to need to know how to factor a polynomial for our regular jobs, right? Even as a mathematician, when's the last time? Well, okay, I factored a polynomial this morning. Okay,
I didn't.
I actually have recently too, helping my daughter with her homework.
Yeah, and I was teaching something to my students. I need to factor a polynomial. Okay, but that's not a satisfying answer. But a more satisfying answer is because mathematics builds into virtues like persistence, curiosity, creativity, the ability to solve problems you've never seen before.
Right. So
who doesn't want to have
practice?
Say again.
The standards for math practice is all about that, right? It's about building up your persistence and looking for patterns and
Looking
everything
for
that you're
patterns.
talking about.
Right, attending to precision. Certainly practices, and in some ways, I'm enlarging those practices to things even bigger than that, such as having an expectation of enchantment. Like math would be so much more exciting if people realized that there was enchantment to be had at the end of the journey. Right now, of course, what I mean by that we can get into, but
I actually wrote that. I wrote that down. Expect enchantment. That jumped out at me. To be enchanted is like Disneyland, right? And the beautiful thing about mathematics, if I know that patterns and I can like unlock this, if I know those are everywhere, then I don't have to get on a plane and go to Disneyland. I can access that feeling by finding a good math problem to unpack. So enchantment is such a wonderful word that's unexpected in the realm of what most people think mathematics is. So we need to provide enchantment for our children and our students and our adults that have been, cursed with this idea that math is different.
I'm imagining that on a math teacher's door. Expect enchantment.
It's awesome.
When you cross this door, expect enchantment, right?
I love it.
Well, I'm sorry. Okay. You go.
I was going to say, there are a couple of things I was going to say. There's a lot we can do to train our students to expect enchantment, right? Like, so we can build activities where we don't, where we help students discover for themselves the punchline, right? The beautiful thing that happens, right? Like, you cut a square, a self-similar square with, a bunch of cubes and squares taken out called a Menger sponge, and you cut it and suddenly you see stars. You're like, whoa, where did that come from? Right? Or do a magic trick that, for instance, uses a mathematical idea. That's the reason magic tricks are so wonderful is because they're enchanting. At the end of it, you're like, whoa, right? It's like the ending to a surprise ending to a football game. That's enchantment, right? It's like finding that waterfall at the end of the hike. That's enchantment. And so an example, I mean, not just math, but like if I'm mathematically trained, then I can look at a news story and see something there that other people wouldn't see. Who doesn't want to do that, right? Like, last year there was this story of gravity waves, the new discovery of gravity waves in the universe, right? And somebody who's mathematically trained would say, could read the story and they learn that, gosh, the reason that they were able to discover these black holes circling each other is basically because of geometry. Like that's like, oh, I understand a little bit of geometry, but this geometry is, maybe a little more different. Maybe it's a little more advanced, but I can grasp that in a way that I would never be able to grasp if I didn't learn geometry. It's amazing. The world is richer. It appears more beautiful when viewed through the eyes, being able to view through the eyes of math.
Yeah, and I think like that idea of expect enchantment is what we want in classrooms. So it also puts a lot of pressure on teachers who are teaching. Then in the class, I'm thinking about even my own. I'm homeschooling my kids this year just because of everything, and like for myself, that's while I want to provide these opportunities for rich mathematical discovery, it's still it's a difficult it can be a difficult proposition. It can be, there are times, Molly and I have had this conversation a lot lately around integer rules. Is it math in service of other math? Is there a reason that we would actually use this in real life outside of math? And so we're constantly thinking about these things, and sometimes we don't have the opportunity or sometimes the know-how. In my case, I don't know how to make this more enchanting than it is right now.
But that's part of the journey, right? Francis, you probably didn't start first grade thinking about math being so enchanting. I mean, I imagine in your adult life, you started to believe this. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe you had a totally enchanting childhood in mathematics, but
No.
I don't think too many kids did.
Yeah. I was
I
going to say,
Yeah.
okay.
No, I think I don't know. I think that some of us do. I think we're born with an innate draw towards mathematics, and that we crush that with formal schooling. I mean, I remember counting everything, counting my steps, and like I got in trouble for asking too many questions. I was oozing with curiosity, and thankfully my parents pulled me out of a preschool because they couldn't handle all my questions. And my mom said, you don't get it. You don't, they weren't going to squash it. So I think we innately are mathematical. We've just defined math as this set of standards that need to be taught at a particular point in time. And I think we've killed it a little bit.
Well, that's what I mean. I think that not everybody, I mean, maybe somebody did grow up with this total idealistic Disneyland thinking about math, but I think the world does not present it that way. And maybe you have a few teachers who do, but for the most part, teachers teach the way that they were taught or the way that they were taught to teach. And it's mostly not enchanting.
Yeah.
No.
It may be part of the message that I hope people take away from the book and from the way that I, the things I'm presenting is that, you have within you the resources to change the motivations for why people teach, or why you teach the subject, and why people should learn math, right? We all have a desire for beauty. So why can't we motivate math the same way we might motivate art? By having people see something beautiful and then want to explain it or describe it. Why can't we motivate people to the freedoms available in mathematics, right? So part of what I do in laying out my case for math for human flourishing is talk about the deep human desires all of us have: a desire for truth, a desire for meaning, a desire for beauty, for freedom, for community. Why aren't these things the part of the way that we motivate and draw people into mathematics?
Yeah.
And
Sunil has a lot to say over here.
Yes.
Are you going to put up a quote?
Yeah, so put up the second one. It says, there's a perfect romance that occurs with every student. If we don't pair up expected enchantment with this window, the journey becomes harder.
Agreed.
And I think that's true in that way of what is that period of romance and how we provide opportunities for that.
Yes. And maybe even how you reopen that window once it's closed.
Right.
And sometimes at the college level, that's what we see, right? Like, I'll encounter students who, but when they come to college math, they end up taking it because it's a requirement. And then they're like, oh, like, I've never seen this side of math before, right? There's a second window that maybe opens up, and only if you're fortunate enough to have somebody open it up for you.
I can tell you that yesterday the window got opened back up for my son. So he's a freshman in college. He's in his second semester of calculus. He actually had wonderful teachers in high school, but last year was not a great year for anyone in school, because of COVID and whatnot. But he is thriving and seeing all kinds of wonderfulness in calculus. So you're right, there is an opportunity in the college setting. The last virtue you talk about is love, and I want to make sure we get there and perhaps talk a little bit about, sort of how you landed here to really be thinking, like, this is very philosophical. It's kind of like the intersection of math and philosophy and how we can live our lives. But I have a quote here that just, there's so much, Francis. I'm such a fan and I'm learning so much. To love through and because of mathematics is to build community for the isolated, to seek justice for the oppressed. And it goes on, it's a whole paragraph. So this idea of that love, we need this now. Like, we've always needed love, but my goodness, We need love. And if we can, as math educators, get this message. So how did you land to that connection and understanding that love has something to do with mathematics?
Yeah. I mean, I guess when you think a little bit about what it means to be a human being, love is sort of the ultimate human desire. Like all of us have desire to be loved. All of us have a desire to love. And part of the question, I think, as I was wrestling with the book and what chapters, like every chapter is a basic human desire. It was which desires to include. And certainly there were many that I could have chosen. But somehow it seemed fitting that the last chapter, the 13th chapter, should be a chapter on the ultimate desire, as well as the ultimate virtue. Like love is also the end, the source and the end of all the other virtues, right? The reason that we build community for the isolated is because we seek to love, right? The reason that we seek to develop joy and understanding mathematics is because we want to, in some sense, love another person, to help them see that joy. We want to love ourselves if we ourselves want to grow in that joy. So the message of this chapter is in some sense, you know, people think love, oh, he's going to talk about loving math. No. You know, that's something else. That's like, you know, liking math, right? I'm talking about how you love another person because of math and through math, right? And that means not writing off that student that you think has no potential in math, right? That means actually seeing them as worthy of the beauty and the joy that come from understanding. And if you see everybody as worthy of that, then wouldn't you want them to grow in their mathematical journey? So that's. I mean, I think for me, part of it comes out of my own faith tradition, where I'm encouraged to think about how I love other people. And so, you know, what does that look like in math? That's the real question. I have to admit, actually, I wrote that, you know, I did a draft of this and I sent it to my editor, and he goes, you know, that last chapter, I think it's not like quite there yet. And, you know, I was like, oh no, you know, like, what do you know? And so then, you know, you should just lean into what you do throughout the rest of the book, which is you just lean into your own story and talk about like, what does it mean for you to love, like through and because of math? What do you mean by that? And so the chapter that you're seeing right now, of course, is me sort of taking his advice and saying, okay, I'm just going to lean in and talk about when I was deeply broken and what did it look like for someone to redeem me because they believed in me. I mean, that's basically what the last chapter, as you saw, is about. It's like, when I was at the depths of despair because someone had said, you're never going to be somebody or whatever, I had to learn to realize that, like, okay, maybe math isn't about being somebody. Maybe math isn't really about achievement, which is what I always thought it was.
Right.
Well,
and so that's kind of the message there is like, no, maybe math is just because you want to be a certain way and you want to think, you want to see the world differently. Maybe it can be valued for its intrinsic goods, not its extrinsic, all the things it can do for us. Maybe that's what math has to be for. And this is how we love people better.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I mean, you're so forthcoming, and lean in is exactly it. In each chapter, there's some personal excerpts, and it really resonates. It's a very powerful ending. So I'm glad your editor told you to lean in even more, because it worked. It really worked. Yeah. I wonder if you can, before we get into how people can learn more from you, I wonder if we can get into your story and a little bit how it's woven throughout the book and your relationship with Chris, and if you can tell people who Chris is and just a little bit of what you want to share about that, and what, because that's another
mind-blowing
thread through. Yeah, there's like these threads that go through the book. There's problems, there's philosophy, but the story of Chris is integral to why it works.
Yeah, thank you. Christopher Jackson is a friend of mine who I met when he first wrote me a letter from prison. He's an incarcerated man who is in jail for a series of armed robberies he committed as a teenager while on drugs. And he's basically been in prison then at the time 7 years, and now it's more like 14. Okay, and so he wrote me this letter 7 years ago, and basically said, "Hey, I've studied my way through all these texts from algebra to calculus 2. Can you help me somehow?" Right? In some ways, like, how can I further my math education?
Right.
And so we developed a correspondence, which started off slow because I'm cautious and I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about Chris. But over time, we basically became friends and learned more about each other's story. And in many ways, this book, despite what we just said, this isn't a story about me teaching Chris stuff. This is actually a story about Chris teaching me.
And all of us now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And so in the book, as you've seen, there's correspondence from Chris, which he's sharing with permission, and he's an official contributor to the book, so he's also getting a portion of the royalties. Chris is I think exemplifies how we are locking people away over long sentences for small crimes, and throwing away people's chance at a dignified life. Part of, I think, what the story of the book is even so, even in this most difficult circumstance, Chris is flourishing. He's flourishing because even though his body is imprisoned, his mind is free, and he's grown in so many wonderful ways. And I think you see that in the book. So, anyways, his story sort of undergirds this whole message. Like,
That's right.
Okay, intellectually, I believe math is for everybody, but oh my gosh, like, did I really believe that until I met Chris?
Right.
Don't know.
Right.
Well, and I think it helps support that last idea that you were just talking about, with that math to love. In using math, we're looking for opportunities to uplift those who are oppressed and to search for justice, right? So mathematics and the search for justice, I think, are woven together and are very tied. And one of the reasons why I think it is so critical, it's this idea that that search for truth in both of those instances, and searching for the ability to lift people up and provide community, I think really came through powerfully, both in that story and in that last section that Sue was mentioning.
Yeah. Thank you.
So before we move into how people can learn more from you, are there any things that any of you want to make sure that we touch on that we haven't? There's so much, but
well, then people wouldn't read the book if we told them everything.
True.
We want them to read the book.
Yeah, I posted earlier today. I was like, this is like a math devotional. Like, like reminded me of some of like the devotional books that I enjoy. It's like that same idea of getting you thinking and evaluating, but so readable and approachable. And so I really have really appreciated that as I've been reading and looking through.
Thank you. And in some ways, it was therapeutic for me to write, in some sense, because I sort of writing out some of the deep anxieties that I felt about how math is, and trying to draw a vision of what math could be and how different it could be. And so there were some tears shed for me as well, in some sense.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you wrote it. It's also fun too. I've been solving the problems and playing the games and learning a little bit along mathematics and being an explorer as I read too. So it's also fun.
Yeah, we had a round of Achi, was it?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Played
yes.
Achi. We made some online versions of that for some teachers. Yeah.
Fun.
So then
that's part of that message as well, which is like mathematical thinking appears in every culture around the world. We don't recognize it as math, but every culture plays games, and games are strategic thinking. That's mathematical thinking, and I would love people to embrace that and see that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh, there's so much. So we'll move in. I think how people can get more from you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that this was a project that I started well before the internet took off, but maybe, in the internet's infancy, which is like late 1998 or 99. I started this website called Math Fun Facts, which still exists. It recently got.
This one.
Well, first of all, there's the book, but we've been talking about the book.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that.
But Math Fun Facts is a website that basically has these 5-minute things that I use to start off classes with, to warm up the class. You don't have to do anything with the class material. It's just a fun idea to show that math has some beautiful ideas in it. And so if you're attracted to beauty, this is what I find beautiful. Certainly, you could create your own collection of things that you think are beautiful, but also try to tap into what students find beautiful, because that's the way to make it personal for them. But anyways, you can check out that website. Still exists, and the URL is there. But you can also Google Math Fun Facts, and it's one of the top links there.
Excellent. And we can post it in the comments too.
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep. And then we have your book.
There's the book. I guess if you're interested in learning some higher level math, there's also I have some courses available. Like there's a whole analysis course on YouTube. That's if you want to learn some higher level math.
On YouTube.
Great.
Wow.
And then I have a course by the teaching company, which is more highly produced, on linear algebra, which is sort of an entry level course in mathematics that actually connects to a lot of the cool things that are going on in data science these days. So that's something you want to check out as well.
Where would people find the one on linear algebra? Because we can link. What is?
It's also linked from my website, francissue.com.
Okay.
But you can get it from the teaching company. Yeah.
Okay. Here, we'll just put it out.
Yeah.
francissue.com. I think I can show that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
It's going.
great.
There we go.
Yeah.
How'd we do? Yes? Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I mean, there's a lot more to unpack, and we are so appreciative of you so graciously and honestly sharing your heart and shedding those tears and writing this book. And we look forward to going on the journey with you, because we are believers. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for all that you're doing to help people see themselves as dignified mathematical thinkers.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right, take care. So we're gonna say goodbye to you. Thanks so much, and please be well and take care.
Thank you.
Whoops.
So
we sorry.
No worries. So we are going to wrap up here. Just for those of us who may have joined us a little later, if you would like to enter a raffle to win a copy of France's book, if you leave a comment here on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, we will collect those and be choosing a name on Monday night. And so maybe you will win your own copy of this amazing book. Additionally, if you are interested in some free resources from us or some additional support, if you text Looney to 22828, we would love to hear you. And additionally, or finally, we are looking for partners for this upcoming school year, the summer end school year. And so if you're interested in working with us, you can find out more about the work that we do with teachers and schools and school districts at looneymath.com.
Awesome. And next week, on March 10th, next Wednesday, we are looking forward to Dr. James Tanton. And it's just this simple question: what is your greatest gift for the world?
Yeah, real simple.
That's it.
I think it's supposed to say wish.
Okay.
I think that is supposed to say wish, actually.
I think it's supposed to say wish.
Yeah.
What is your greatest wish for the world, right? And so we look forward to that as well.
So that's a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah, we've not been tackling big questions at all the last couple of weeks. Really small, simple questions.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and just a reminder to always be curious and of course always be kind. Take good care.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Good night.